Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. For I am the Watcher.
This message will not be the last. I am the Watcher.
Thought to hear is real. What we all hope to be true is in fact possible. Our loved ones can reach us.
Imagine spending nearly everything you have on what you believe is your forever home. The movers haven't even finished unloading boxes. The smell of fresh paint still hangs in the air. You walk to the mailbox expecting utility bills, advertisements, or maybe a welcome note from a neighbor. Instead, you find a handwritten letter from someone you've never met. The writer greets you as the new owner and claims your house has been watched for generations. They say their father watched it before them, and their grandfather before that. They seem to know details they shouldn't know. Suddenly, the dream home you've worked so hard to buy no longer feels like home at all. That unsettling scenario became reality in 2014 for the Broaddus family after they purchased a stately 6-bedroom home at 657 Boulevard in the quiet, affluent town of Westfield, New Jersey. What began as an exciting new chapter quickly transformed into one of the most disturbing and mysterious stories in modern American true crime. More than a decade later, the identity of the person who called themselves the Watcher remains officially unknown, and the case continues to fascinate investigators, journalists, and mystery enthusiasts around the world. The Broaddus family purchased 657 Boulevard in June 2014 for approximately $1.35 million. The house itself had everything they were looking for: spacious rooms, classic architecture, a safe neighborhood, and enough room for their growing family. Westfield had long been considered one of New Jersey's most desirable communities, known for its tree-lined streets, excellent schools, and historic homes. It was exactly the kind of place where parents imagined their children growing up. Before officially moving into the home, the family began making renovations. Workers came and went throughout the day, updating portions of the house while the Broaddus family prepared for the move. During one of those visits, Derek Broaddus stopped by to check on the progress. As he looked through the day's mail, one envelope immediately stood out. It was addressed simply to the new owner. Inside was a letter unlike anything he had ever seen. The anonymous writer welcomed the family to the neighborhood before quickly shifting into something much darker. The person claimed that 657 Boulevard had been the subject of my family for decades. According to the letter, the writer's grandfather had watched the home during the 1920s. Their father had continued watching it during the 1960s, and now it was their turn. The letter introduced its author with a name that would soon become famous across the world: the Watcher.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. Welcome. Let the party begin. Signed, the Watcher.
That's your house, don't you remember? As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
At first glance, the letter almost read like an eerie work of fiction, but the more Derek continued reading, the more unsettling it became. Instead of celebrating their new home, they contacted the Westfield Police Department. Investigators quickly recognized that the letter was unusual enough to warrant serious attention. Officers advised the Broaddus family not to tell too many neighbors about the letter while the investigation began. They hoped to preserve any possible evidence and avoid tipping off whoever had written it. The envelope and letter were examined carefully. Authorities later determined that DNA recovered from one of the envelopes belonged to a woman, though investigators cautioned that this alone did not identify the author. The DNA could have come from someone who handled or prepared the envelope rather than the person who wrote the letter. Unfortunately, forensic evidence produced no definitive suspect. As investigators searched for answers, another letter arrived. This time, the tone became even more personal. The watcher referenced ongoing renovations and appeared aware of changes taking place inside the property. The writer commented about workers in construction, reinforcing the unsettling possibility that someone was regularly observing the home.
Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time, they will. I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often. Is she the artist in the family? 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream.
For the Broaddus family, every ordinary activity suddenly felt exposed. Opening curtains, walking through the yard, or allowing contractors inside became reasons to wonder whether someone nearby was watching. Fear gradually replaced excitement. The family delayed moving into the house. Instead of decorating bedrooms and planning family gatherings, they found themselves discussing security cameras, police reports, and possible suspects. Detectives interviewed previous owners of the home. The Woods family, who had lived there for more than 2 decades before selling it, acknowledged receiving a strange letter shortly before moving out. However, they described it as odd rather than threatening and had never experienced the kind of ongoing harassment the Broaddus family now faced. This revelation complicated the investigation. If another letter had been sent before the sale, then the watcher's claims about monitoring the property might not have been entirely fabricated. At the same time, investigators couldn't determine whether the same individual had written every letter or whether someone had become fixated on the home only after the purchase became public. As months passed, the investigation widened. Police examined numerous individuals who might have had knowledge of the neighborhood or the property. Among the most closely examined possibilities for the identity of the watcher who terrorized the Broaddus family were the long-time next-door neighbors, particularly Michael Langford and members of his family. The Langfords had occupied their home since the early 1960s, a detail that aligned uncannily with the letter's claim that the watcher's own father had begun monitoring the property in that same decade. Michael, then in his 60s and living with his elderly mother, Peggy, and several adult siblings, was described by some in the neighborhood as eccentric and socially awkward, someone who might peer from windows or linger in ways that unsettled others. Investigators interviewed him early on, and one detective later noted that certain elements of his account seemed to echo details found in the letters themselves. When female DNA was recovered from the adhesive on one of the envelopes, suspicion briefly shifted toward Michael's sister Abby, a local real estate agent who might have had both proximity and a professional interest in the property. A covert DNA sample taken from a water bottle she used did not match, however, and authorities eventually informed the Broadduses that the entire Langford family had been ruled out, though they offered no detailed public explanation for the decision. Another fleeting lead involved a young man nicknamed the Gamer, whose girlfriend's car was observed lingering outside 657 Boulevard during a police stakeout. She told officers that her boyfriend lived on the same block and played dark video games in which he assumed the role of a character called the Watcher. He agreed to an interview but never appeared, and without further evidence, the trail went cold. Other theories have circulated with equal persistence. Some pointed toward Robert Kaplow, a retired English teacher and author who lived nearby and had once spoken to students about his fascination with a particular Westfield house, even describing the act of writing anonymous letters to it as a kind of literary exercise. Kaplow's literary background and the polished yet oddly formal tone of the Watcher's correspondence kept his name in circulation among amateur investigators, though no concrete link was ever established. Still others insisted the Broaddus family themselves had fabricated the letters, either out of sudden buyer's remorse after realizing the financial weight of a $1.3 million purchase, or in a calculated bid for publicity that might later attract film or book deals. This theory gained traction among certain neighbors who noted the family's rapid string of home purchases and refinancings, yet it has been firmly rejected by investigators who observed Maria Broaddus's genuine distress and confirmed that the DNA on the envelopes did not match hers. Profilers who examined the letters independently concluded that the writer was most likely an older person living in the immediate vicinity, someone familiar enough with the house's layout, its history, and the family's early movements to write with chilling precision. More than a decade later, the case remains officially unsolved. The letters have long ceased, and the true identity of the person or persons who signed themselves the Watcher continues to elude both police and the public. Nearby residents naturally drew attention simply because of their proximity. Some neighbors reportedly had unusual interests or routines that investigators felt deserved examination, while others had backgrounds that generated speculation among both police and the media. Yet suspicion is not proof. Despite years of investigation, no evidence sufficient to identify or charge anyone ever emerged. Many people who found themselves discussed publicly denied any involvement, and none were ever officially named as the culprit by law enforcement. Meanwhile, the letters continued to haunt the family. Each new message reinforced the feeling that someone was paying close attention to events surrounding the house. Whether the writer truly possessed detailed knowledge or merely crafted convincing psychological manipulation remains one of the central mysteries of the case. Eventually, word of the bizarre letters escaped the confines of the police investigation. Local news outlets picked up the story.
Same year, a family brought this beautiful Dutch colonial and started getting creepy, terrifying letters signed The Watcher.
Then national newspapers, soon television programs, podcasts, documentaries, and online forums began dissecting every sentence the Watcher had written.
Give the house what it wants. Young blood.
The mystery captured public imagination because it felt simultaneously unbelievable and strangely plausible. Unlike many ghost stories or urban legends, this case centered on something entirely tangible: handwritten letters delivered through the mail. There were no supernatural claims, no unexplained creatures, no haunted artifacts, just a person, or perhaps multiple people, who appeared obsessed with a single house. As interest exploded online, countless theories emerged. Some believed the Watcher was a jealous neighbor upset by renovations. Others wondered whether someone connected to the previous owners held an unhealthy attachment to the property. Some theorized it was an elaborate attempt to lower the home's value. Others questioned whether the entire incident had somehow been fabricated, though investigators treated the letters as genuine evidence throughout their inquiry. Still others speculated that the identity of the Watcher might never be discovered because the individual carefully avoided leaving usable evidence. Each theory contained unanswered questions. If it was a neighbor, why continue for so many years without making a critical mistake? If it was financially motivated, why pursue such a complicated and risky plan? If it was simply harassment, what inspired such intense fixation on one particular home? None of these questions have definitive answers. The Broaddus family faced an increasingly difficult situation. Living in the house no longer seemed possible. Selling it proved equally challenging. Prospective buyers learned about the letters and understandably became hesitant. The property that had once represented the family's dream now carried a reputation few buyers wanted to inherit. The financial consequences were substantial. Legal disputes followed. At one point, the family explored whether previous owners should have disclosed the earlier letter they had received before the sale. That effort ultimately did not produce the outcome the family hoped for, leaving them to continue navigating a difficult and expensive situation. Years later, after numerous attempts, the property was eventually sold at a loss compared to what the Broaddus family had originally paid. Although they were finally able to move forward, the emotional impact of the experience undoubtedly lingered. Fictional adaptations naturally take creative liberties. The real case remains compelling, precisely because so many of its central questions remain unanswered. Did the writer truly believe they were carrying out some kind of family tradition, or was that story simply invented to frighten the new owners? How much of what the watcher claimed was based on genuine observation, and how much was carefully crafted psychological manipulation? These unanswered questions continue to fuel discussion more than a decade later. Perhaps that's what makes this mystery so enduring. Unlike cases that conclude with an arrest or confession, The Watcher offers no satisfying ending. There is no courtroom verdict, no final revelation, and no official explanation tying every loose end together. Instead, the story leaves us with uncertainty. Somewhere, perhaps, the person who signed those letters knows exactly what happened, or perhaps the truth has already disappeared forever. Today, 657 Boulevard still stands as an ordinary home on an ordinary street, hiding one of America's most unsettling, unsolved mysteries. It looks like any other house, yet a few handwritten letters turned it into a place forever surrounded by fear and unanswered questions. What do you think really happened at 657 Boulevard? Was the Watcher a neighbor, someone tied to the home's past, an elaborate hoax, or someone whose identity will never be known? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy true mysteries, haunted history, and unexplained cases, subscribe to Ghostline so you don't miss our next investigation. Until next time, keep asking questions, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.
Ghostline.